So hello, everyone, and welcome to #CuratorBattle. My name is Chandra, and I will be your moderator this afternoon for those of you on the East Coast and morning for those of us in the Pacific. How has the conference been so far, Zoe? Like, what have you guys kind of learned?
Oh, it's been cool. I have gotten to see a few of the speakers, especially on Friday night, which were really cool. There was one lady who was talking about reuse of materials, and she did her whole talk on that. Another man did his on like erasure of Black history in textbooks, and that was really, really interesting and really relevant and current right now.
Oh, that's awesome. I'm glad there's such a variety of speakers and topics in these kind of like TED Talks. Well, to hopefully kind of end this conference off on a fun note, my museum collaborators and I have kind of put together a fun activity for y'all, and I can guarantee that you will leave us today having learned at least one thing. And if you haven't learned at least one thing, I will be very impressed, because I learned a lot of things making this presentation, and I know Nori has, and I know John has as well. So that's kind of the goal. So I am actually originally from the 904, and for those of you who don't know, that is Jacksonville, Florida. I actually received both of my PhD and my bachelor's from the University of Florida. So I think I was there for about 9 years. And for those of you who think that is entirely too long to live in Gainesville, you are correct. I I worked for the Florida History Museum while I got my PhD in genetics and genomics. And I tell people I live kind of in the intersection of natural history and computers. So essentially I work with very, very large amounts of natural history data, whether that be collections or whether that be DNA. That's just what I work with. So a few months ago, I decided that I graduated and decided that I had been in Florida a little bit too long, and decided to fly literally almost as far away as I could, and ended up here at the Bishop Museum in Honolulu. And Hawaii, I've learned so far, is just absolutely amazing and gorgeous. So I'm having a little trouble kind of deciding which museum is the best, if you will. So I have decided to put it in your, I'm sure, very capable hands, and let these two museums fight for my affection, if you will. Here's what we're going to do. So first things first, if you have a question or comment, please just go ahead and shout it out. I get annoyed listening to my own self-talk, and to be honest, I get annoyed listening to both of them talk all the time. So please save me from them. I
think you just ditch this and go someplace else.
I know. Let's go have a drink.
Let's see here. So our game today is actually modeled after the Twitter event #CuratorBattles, which is actually started by the Yorkshire Museum in the UK as a fun way to sort of keep art collections alive on social media, with like a weekly competition during COVID. So for example, my favorite week happened to be the week they searched for the cream of the crop, the best of the best, really kind of what we all hope to find, the best butts. So as you can see, there were plenty of kind of fun submissions. And it was really a fun way for museums to kind of interact with the public when nobody could physically go into the museums, right? So today I'm going to have our two contestants do exactly that. I will give them a theme and then send them off into their respective collections to go find whatever it is they think will beat their competitor and ultimately deserve my love. So while they're off kind of like finding these items, I'll be talking through some interesting, fun flora and fauna that go along with that particular theme. And then once they're back, they'll show us their objects and explain kind of why they chose them. And keep in mind, I don't know what they're going to choose, and they don't know what each other has chosen either. So, okay, everything good to go? Yes? All right. So first, let's go ahead and meet our contestants. So coming to us all the way from Honolulu, Hawaii, is Nori Young, a small scrapper at 5 feet tall. She received her PhD from the University of Hawaii, where she studied shoreline birds.
Turn the camera around.
She has been working for the Bishop Museum for 5 years, 6 months, and 34 days to the dot, and she is currently the curator of malacology. And for those of you who don't know, malacology is the study of mollusks, which is the second largest group of animals after arthropods. And these include snails, slugs, clams, octopus, squid, and numerous other kinds of animals. And the opposite end of the ring over here is John Slipsinski, right? Yes.
Ouch.
The malacology collections manager for the Florida Museum of Natural History. Hailing from Virginia, he received his master's from the University of Virginia, and he currently studies terrestrial snails on islands such as Papua New Guinea, Madagascar, and Bermuda. So if anybody is an expert in island living, it's going to be John. So today, we're going to have them go head to head to see which malacology collection is better. And let's go ahead and get started. So for this hashtag curator battle theme, I want you to go into your collections and find the creepiest, most scariest items you have. Okay, and don't hold back. We really kind of want to scare these folks, so go for it, and we'll go ahead and chat. Okay. So when we think about Halloween, we conjure up sort of these visions of witches, warlocks, broomsticks, and potions, right? But what about this haunting holiday's unsung heroes of the animal kingdom? What freakish facts can we conjure up about them, or are there stranger things? So while they're doing that, let's go ahead and chat about the standard menagerie of sort of scary Halloween creatures, if you will. So
Well, you better hurry because I think we're ready, Chandra.
No, keep going. What animals do you think of when you think of Halloween?
I think of spiders, black cats.
Yeah, like so there's very kind of like specific animals that come to mind on Halloween. So I've gone ahead and put together a couple of my favorite Halloween themed dudes for us to talk about. So first things first, this little guy is aptly named the Halloween moon crab. He's called this because of his sort of brightly colored carapace of orange, black, and purple. And so he has a built-in costume, if you will. They are found along the coasts of Central America, and they're actually nocturnal. And they're actually pretty small. They're only about 4 inches long, and they live in burrows in the rainforest. And these burrows can be up to about 4 feet deep. So he's got a really, really big house. And since they actually live in the rainforest, they don't live in the water, but they do need water to reproduce. So this means they can live as far away as up to like 18 miles from the ocean, and they have to make that long journey back to the ocean every single year. Secondly, we have this guy over here. So this freaky looking fish is called a bearded ghoul. He's a type of fish with these enlarged pectoral fins. So these are the fins that are right here with these long finger protrusions that allow him to sort of walk along the ocean floor. They're also nocturnal. So during the day, they do what I usually want to be doing and sleep. And they sleep buried in this little bed of sand. And funnily enough, the Latin name for this guy is Inimicus didactylus, which actually comes from the Latin word from in meaning not and amicus meaning friendly. So this guy is not very friendly. They have a bunch of spines on their back that contain venom, so you don't want to step on him and wake him up. If you do, it's going to be a bad time for you and your foot. So let's go ahead and check in with our curator to see kind of what objects they've gone ahead and grabbed for us.
All right.
Or Nora, you can go first. Yep.
Yeah. Well, let me do the other facing camera. All right. So first, it's not really that scary, but it has like the orange and the black. These are Cuban snails that we have in the collection. Kind of Halloween-y, right?
I mean, Halloween moon crabs, he's orange and black.
And then you have this guy, Euglandina rosea. So I'm going to show you a video of this guy. This was brought from Florida and introduced to Hawaii. And it eats other snails. See how its mouth parts is just grabbing the foot? And then it just rips the body from the shell. Snails are born with the shell. So if you want the shell, you need to rip the body out for it. See it slurping? Tasty. Now that's scary, particularly if you're a native snail in Hawaii and you have that guy. This is Gonaxis from Africa, also introduced to Hawaii. Watch it as it grabs, snaps ahead. I think those are really scary. Your turn, John.
All right. I bet you would never have anticipated that a barnacle would be scary. Do you see this crab? Do you see the large bulbous thing on the bottom of the crab? That is a parasitic barnacle. And the only way we really knew that these were barnacles, because they have naupliar larvae, which are just like barnacle larvae. It attaches to this crab and then sends tendrils throughout the crab's body. It can go around the digestive system and steal food. And it also goes into the brain and can control the behavior of the crab. So it can turn both male or female crabs into, it can make them think that they've got a clutch of eggs on their abdomen, so that they clean those eggs and they oxygenate the eggs and they keep them really nice, but they're not eggs, they're barnacles.
Oh no. That's crazy. Oh wow. Those two are definitely going to be this is going to be an interesting battle, that's for sure. Okay, so this next category is called what's in a name. So when it comes to naming animal species, scientists sort of love to show their sense of humor, because it's one of the major areas where we get to do almost whatever we want, whether it's their common name, or which is the name by which animals are most commonly known, or the Latin name, which is the unique name for an organism. Certain species are bestowed with names that are just simply silly. And sometimes these names are descriptive, in case of like red-lipped batfish, that highlight these animals' unique appearances or behaviors. But sometimes, however, the origins of these names are far more convoluted. Okay, so for this challenge, I want you to go find me some snails that have a cool or interesting name, and whoever brings me back the best one won't be subjected to name calling for the rest of the year. So while they're doing that, let's go ahead and talk about some interesting animal kingdom names. So this first one is one of my favorites, actually. So now the one thing you have to know about scientists is that we're not very original. So why don't we actually try and guess what this one is called? I will give you a hint. There are two unrelated species that have this name. This one shown here is about 2 feet across, and the other one is only about 35 centimeters across. So what animal do you think this is?
Some kind of sponge?
Close. Yeah, very close. They live in the water.
The best guess.
Ocean. And they have really long tendrils going down.
A jellyfish?
It is a jellyfish, yes. And secondly, what does he look like commonly?
It looks like an egg.
Yes.
I hope that's the right answer.
Yep, he looks like a fried egg. So pretending we're super unoriginal scientists, what is this thing called?
The egg jellyfish.
Fried egg jellyfish. Very good. I know we're lazy, okay? Anyway, the fried egg jellyfish is this huge jellyfish that has tentacles that reach up to 20 feet long. And if you don't think this floating egg creature is very menacing, you would be very correct. It actually has a very, very weak sting and has a symbiotic relationship with larval rock crabs, where crabs actually ride around on the top of this jellyfish and feed on parasites that annoy the jellyfish. Yeah, so this thing just floats around looking like an egg, and there's crabs on top. Anyway, this next animal, I wanted to choose a really animal with a cool Latin name. So many species are named after celebrities or pop culture references. So you have, Stephen Colbert, SpongeBob, Darth Vader. You have all sorts of these things. But I think my favorite is this fish called boops. So the word boops is actually Greek for cow-eyed, which refers to this fish's sort of large bugged out eyes. And I just think it's a fun name to say. This fish is actually very common outside of America, all up and down Europe and Africa. And it's used for eating and as bait fish. Let's go ahead and check in with our curators to see what they have found for us. See if it's anywhere near as good as boops or the fried egg jellyfish.
All right, John, you can go first if you want to, or you want me to go?
I can go.
Okay.
So names in Pacific Island land snails. There was a guy named Solom that named things like Ba Humbugai. There was genus Ba, and he was at his office late in the night, Christmas Eve, and he thought Humbugai, and so he named it Ba Humbugai. And then the same person that has the very first and the very last name in the in mollusks, with Zizodonta, 3 Z's in a row, and Aodonta, 3 A's in a row. So he was a character. But the one I was going to show you is actually one that Nori just talked about, the rosy wolf snail. And I think, I mean, it's not particularly weird name, but it's kind of a wolf in sheep's clothing sort of name. I mean, these are vicious snail predators, and they've got really beautiful rosy shells. And so the rosy wolf snail, I think, is a really good name for this. But one thing that's also cool, if you look, this is some from Florida, which is where the rosy wolf snail is native to, the southeastern US. And there are small, tall, thin ones from South Florida. There are fat ones from the Gulf Coast. And working with Nori and other Bishop Museum scientists, we're figuring out that these are multiple different species under this one name. Oh. So this snail that has been such an environmental disaster because of biocontrol efforts is actually more than one thing.
Wow, that's crazy. Nori, go ahead.
Not bad, John, not bad. So, do you have a T-Rex in your collection, John?
I do not. I really wish I did.
I do. And here it is. No, it is not Tyrannosaurus Rex. It is Tropidoptera Rex. I kind of tricked you guys, but it is a T-Rex also. These were found only on Oahu at the topmost part of the Ko'ola mountain range. Unfortunately, just like the Tyrannosaurus Rex, this Tropidoptera Rex is also extinct. But it's a cool name. And then we also have some really other cool marine snails like John was talking about earlier. We have a small little ceratid, and the genus is called Itibitium.
Itibitium. I love that so much. Very, very.
All right,
very
so that's my T-Rex.
Very good, you two. I enjoy it quite a bit. All right, so for this next one, defense. Nature to some appears to be a tranquil and peaceful place, but there's also another side to nature. The natural world is a brutal dance of life and death, where many prey animals and plants have been forced to develop sort of these interesting and surprising defense mechanisms to defend themselves from predator, in some cases the elements. So for this next category, I have asked our two curators to go and find a specimen with a cool defensive strategy. Meanwhile, what kind of defensive strategies do you know of, or what do you think of when I say that? So when an animal is getting angry and it needs to defend itself, what sorts of things do you look out for?
Sometimes like animals will attack other animals. Like my dog got into a snake one time and had a little showdown.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely.
To that end, I guess, some are poisonous or venomous to help themselves.
Yeah, no, that's awesome, Zoe. That's great. There's all sorts of stuff going on. No, for sure. So the two that I found have some super crazy and unique defensive strategies. So this guy is actually called a Spanish ribbed newt, and he's pretty metal, if you ask me. He's an endemic species to the Iberian Peninsula and Morocco. So that means he isn't found anywhere else other than those two places. So I don't know if you can see, but he's got these little warts running up and down both sides of his rib cage. And this is because when these guys are threatened, they actually basically turn into a real life Wolverine and push their ribs out through their skin to ward off potential predators. And at the same time, he's like pushing out his ribs. He has these special glands that cover them in this stinging toxin. And so also like Wolverine, when every single time he does this, he has to heal his skin over. That's pretty crazy, right? This next one is basically just a real life Pokemon. He's actually called a boxer crab. In order to defend himself, he picks up enemies and he holds them in his claws. So whenever something gets too close, he sort of channels his inner Nelson Mandela and uses the anemones as boxing gloves. So it stings anything that gets too close. So in return, the anemones eat the food particles that the crab drops, and everybody is happy, except for whatever decided to attack the crab, because then you get an anemone to deface. And so I love him. There are some pretty cool videos and gifs of him just like waving around his anemones. Another common name for him is actually the pom-pom crab, for obvious reasons. So let's go ahead and check in with Nori and John. If Nori, you want to go first, that'd be great.
All right, so snails have this really cool defense. They secrete a lot of slime. So the slime is very good defenses, we can see here. So this is a live giant African snail. And so that to protect it from drying out and also from predators, it secretes mucus and then dries in the opening. It's got an epiphragm, so that it's like a nice hard door so that it doesn't dry out. And so this mucus is also so thick that it allows snails to crawl over very sharp objects and they don't get even cut. And for humans, they used the properties of this mucus to do surgical glue and supposedly make very good spa facials. So the slime mucus, lots and lots of things it can do. How's that?
That's pretty crazy. I don't know if I want to put slime on my face. I could just take those snails and just.
Yeah, well, happy snails make happy slime, makes very happy facials.
Yes. John, what you got?
I love watching snails walk on razor blades. That's really cool.
Oh boy.
So a lot of marine slugs have just gorgeous patterns and colors. This is a phyllid, and it eats sponges, and sponges, because they don't move, produce a lot of toxins to try to prevent themselves from getting eaten. And these slugs can also incorporate those toxins. And so to notify would-be predators that they may be really not very tasty and may make them very sick, these slugs often have really bright, beautiful color patterns. This one's a black and white. Unfortunately, a lot of the color patterns kind of dissolve into the ethanol, and you end up with a slug that's just kind of a gray blob. But this one, I think, really is fantastic.
Wow, that's really, really cool. There's some crazy diversity going on in the animal kingdom. Right, so humans may be the ones who cracked the code on cell phones, the written language, and sliced bread, but the animal kingdom brings a lot to the table in terms of sheer just size and strength. So yes, it was a human being who wrote Romeo and Juliet, as was the inventor of the vacuum cleaner, but these accomplishments don't mean much to a 12-foot wide crab or a 300-pound bird. So as humans, we can only bow our heads in respect to these massive kings and queens of the animal world. So for this category, I've asked them to go ahead and find the absolute largest items in their collections. Can you name the absolute largest animal that has ever existed?
Ever existed? Wow.
Ever existed.
It's got to be some kind of like whale or something in the ocean.
Yes. So the absolute biggest animal to have ever existed is actually still alive, and it is the blue whale. Next, of course, is going to be dinosaurs, all of those kind of extinct, really large creatures. So megafauna are animals that are really, really, really big. So some megafauna exists today, and that's going to be like the blue whale, rhinos, giraffes, hippos. Those sort of really, really big animals, big and heavy animals. But disregarding dinosaurs, some of the largest actual animals to ever exist are actually extinct, and so only their smaller cousins have actually survived. So these are a couple of my favorites. So first is this thing called the Colossus penguin. So not a ton is actually known about these guys, other than the fact that they probably lived about 40 million years ago in what is obviously now known as Antarctica. So the one discovered is estimated to have stood 6 feet 8 inches tall, so almost 7 feet tall, which meant it could probably look LeBron James square in the eyes. And so I don't know about you, but on that figure, I'm 5'3", so I probably stand like maybe up to that dude's chin. And I think just absolutely seeing a penguin that tall would terrify me so much. But he would make a great toboggan. So secondly, the largest insect to have ever lived is actually called a griffin fly. And so these guys are closely related to modern dragonflies, and they have a wingspan of about 2 feet wide, actually. And so they're only known from fossils because they did live about 300 million years ago. And the first one ever found is actually housed at the National Museum of Natural History in Paris, France. So if you're ever there, like, go ahead and see if you can find this thing, but still absolutely gigantic dragonfly flying around. So I don't know where John went, but I'm assuming he'll pop back up in a little bit. So Nori, why don't you go ahead and describe or tell us what the biggest item in your collection is?
All right, so this is, you can see my hand right there, Tridacna gigas. It's a pretty big bivalve, isn't it? Yeah, and so you can see those at the Great Barrier Reef and such. But there's also a live one in the Waikiki Aquarium if you're on island in Hawaii, so you can check it out at the Waikiki Aquarium. But that is our largest specimen.
Is that
I don't know
largest clam, or is it a clam?
Mm-hmm.
Is that the largest clam?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Species. Okay. Well, I don't know where John went, but I do know what his animal was. So
he has gloves on, so I think he's probably bringing out some sort of large octopus, maybe.
So because I chatted with him about this, but he originally, so the Florida Museum does actually have a giant squid in the collections. However, you couldn't show it because it is like underground and locked up, and because it needs to be kept from the light, it's in this giant tank, right, that's closed over, so you couldn't really show it. So I think he decided to go ahead and do another sort of squid or something that he was going to sort of like pull out of the jar. So maybe if he comes back, we'll get to see that. But yeah, it's really cool, right? Yeah. Anyway,
right, next, please.
Next, oh, okay, getting to the end here. So next is going to be our star power. So this was actually a real theme that #CuratorBattles did. So star power is going to be your star object, the absolute best of the best item in your collection. And so these are going to be the best of the best items in your collections, the one with the fun stories, the ones with the most interesting backgrounds. And so a couple of the ones that I've sort of pulled out here are ones that people have submitted. So this first one is Colin Ryder Richardson's life jacket, and it is housed at the Egham Museum in the UK. So the story behind this is actually one that's pretty sad. And what happened was during World War II, Germany had invaded France and taken over France. So England was kind of very, very scared that, they were going to, Germany was going to invade England. So what the United States and what Canada decided to do was say, hey, like, go ahead and send, all of your children to us. And so they all, so I think there was like an age cutoff, and a lot of children were kind of sent over to Canada in the United States in these boats. And so actually one of the very first ships, however, went off on this boat. And Colin Ryder Richardson was about 12 at the time, I believe. And so his family decided to go ahead and send him over. And they sent him over on this boat, and his mom was obviously very, very scared. His mom was obviously very, very scared that that this child was making his this voyage all by himself. And so she decided to sew a life jacket into his actual jacket, and then she sewed gloves into the pockets as well. So about 3 days into their journey, Germany actually torpedoed this ship, and because it was very, very cold, and these are very, very old ships. Only about two of the boats were actually seaworthy. So he was able to survive in this sort of freezing cold weather for 2 days before he was rescued. And so anyway, that's why that's why this particular object is really, really cool and has really significance to it. He was, I think, one of 13 children survivors of this torpedoing. The next one is the Gutenberg Bible from the British Library. So the Gutenberg Bible is really, really cool. It's one of the most famous Bibles kind of like ever existed. I believe there are only about 38 copies. And the Gutenberg Bible is really important because it's one of the first items to have been made using like the mobile press. So some of these were on paper and some of these were on vellum, but they all the words were pressed, and then also all these big like large letters were hand inked in. And so they've got about 2 of them, and they're also really cool. So let's go ahead and go to our curator to see what they have. Well, actually, I think John has the squid ready to go. And Nori, I see your comment.
Have we already gone to the next one?
We have, but go ahead and show your squid.
All right. So Florida is really unique in that it's a peninsula in a large, between the Atlantic and the Gulf, and it heats up a lot faster than the water does. That causes air to come in, and you get wonderful Florida thunderstorms, but that also creates upwelling, and upwelling can bring into shore some really remarkable things.
Oh,
this is a rhomboid squid.
Oh God.
And these are, fairly common. This washed up on Daytona Beach. You can see it's got a wonderful sharp biting beak. It's got these long tentacles that reach out and grab fish. These are the only mollusks that have closed circulatory systems, so they can pump a lot of blood very quickly, and they're very active predators.
Wow, that's crazy. Nori, do you want to go ahead and talk about your star object? And John, will you go find your star object?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, it's kind of hard to find a star object because every object has a cool story, right? And so it's kind of hard to rank that because we have like undescribed species here. We have like really colorful ones, or the large one, or the T-Rex, right? So it's kind of hard to find something that it's like, wow, just blows everything away, because everything has a story. But I do want to point this one out. Let's see. This is, can you see that little snail? That's a live one. So we have a captive rearing facility here. This is Kaala subretia. It was rediscovered in 2008. And the last time it was recorded was in the 60s. So a lot of people have pretty much, ripped this little guy out. But nope, it is still alive. It is Kaala subretia. It's the only species in this genus. So once this goes extinct, the entire genus goes too. You see all those cool gold speckling? That comes from the body. So when it's not alive, it's just a translucent brown shell. So if you want to keep that beautiful coloration, you gotta keep this really cute little snail alive too.
Wow, that's very cool. John, what do you got for us?
I had the same problem that Nori did. We've got so much really cool stuff, but what I decided on was this group of Madagascan land snails. This is called Tropidophora. And we have the best collection of Madagascar land snails in the world because we had a research associate who collected Madagascar for 20 years. And so we have literally thousands, tens of thousands of specimens from Madagascar. And this researcher described hundreds of new species from these collections, but he retired, and there's still hundreds and hundreds more new species to describe, like this beautiful one right here.
Wow, that's really, really cool. That kind of goes into our last topic here, which is going to be we're going to talk about crises in biodiversity real quick. As you know, we're in the middle of our we're actually in the middle of our 6th major extinction right now, and that extinction is directly due to humans and sort of our activity. And it's estimated that I think 1 out of every 8 species that exists is endangered of going extinct right now. And so I'm sure you can imagine that, we know you see a lot of the larger, more charismatic mammals and big species that are sort of the focus for any kind of funding or any kind of efforts to try and save that species. And so that's really good, and that's really important, that's really cool. But there are a lot of other things out there, there are a lot of other things out there that need saving as well, maybe that aren't as large and aren't as charismatic. And if you're out on like a safari, everybody's clamoring to see the tigers, you're clamoring to see the giraffes, but there are also a lot of other things, like all these sort of cool snails that we've talked about today. And if all of these sort of things go exist, if they're not focused on, then all of the cool biodiversity that we've kind of talked about and learned for all these animals will end up going extinct, and that'll be very sad. So I've asked these two to find just an endangered or extinct species in their collection. So if you guys want to share that, Nori, you can go first.
All right, so I already showed you Tropodoptera rex, which is already extinct, but we also have some good stories too. So here, switch my camera. Here's another cool little snail. See that beautiful striping? Mm-hmm. Amastra micans. It used to be extinct in the wild and only being propagated in these captive rearing facilities at Bishop Museum. But with our collaborators from the state, they were able to reintroduce hundreds of these back into the wild, into areas that were protected against predators. And so this is one of the happy stories that hopefully it will not be one of the snail species that go extinct within the next year or 10 years. So.
Wow, that's really cool. Thank you so much for your time today, Nori. Thanks for taking time out of your Sunday to go into work and explore the collections with us a little bit.
Thanks, Nori.
Well, I got 1 more minute because I want to know who wins.
Okay, John.
All right.
All right. This gorgeous snail here.
Okay.
Is the Manus Island tree snail. It occurs in Manus Island, which is the island off of Papua New Guinea. And it's unusual. Very few green snails like this exist. And it became a collector's item, and it was over collected, and led it to be listed both on CITES and on Fish and Wildlife's listing. So this is a threatened species. And
where'd you go? Okay, go ahead.
And so it was listed on those because the trade in this was far too extensive to be able to be supported. And the island is being deforested as well. So the species is losing its habitat as well as being over collected. So that's my
that one's very pretty
story.
All right.
Hey, Chandra, we have a couple of those in our collection too.
I've seen them, yes. Actually.
His are better though.
So competitive.
I have seen ours, yes. Okay. So I have decided to go ahead and put this in Zoe's very capable hands to tell us which collection is the best.
I mean, Noreen gets points for the terrifying videos in the beginning, and
yeah, those were good.
I gotta give props to the live squid. That was really cool. Yeah. I don't know, Chandra, help me out here. I don't want to choose.
Well,
that's not fair.
Chandra's got a conflict of interest.
So, I do.
So I think we should be careful with her choice.
All right, we'll just tie for now. How's that?
That sounds great.
That sounds diplomatic.
Yes.
All right, I gotta run, guys. Sorry.
All right, see you.
Yes.
See
Bye,
you.
Noi. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, so I wanted to go ahead and throw up a quick thanks slide for the Florida Museum and the Bishop Museum, and then go ahead and put Nori and John's emails up if anybody has any questions or anybody needs to chat with them. But that is all I have today. So thanks for joining, and I hope you learned something.